To go straight to Oprah, who's the last chapter in the book, and some people would probably say, well, she doesn't belong in the book because she's not as fast as these ladies, for sure, and she was 10 years after Joan Benoit, actually. But Oprah does belong in the book for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is that the women's running revolution, which has been the biggest, best thing ever to happen in running, and I've been around for 50 years, so I have some perspective on that. It all began after Oprah. It didn't begin after any of these ladies or even Joni. It began after Oprah. I don't know if it was cause and effect, but I know she didn't hurt at all. So in 1994, there's a bunch of us who have figured out that Oprah Winfrey is going to run a marathon. And when I say a bunch of us, I mean the two magazines in the world that care about Oprah Winfrey and marathoning. The National Enquirer and Runner's World. So, Runner's World, where I'm the editor, has figured out Oprah's done some other running. She's from Chicago. Oprah's going to run the Chicago Marathon. So we're all getting psyched to go to Chicago and watch Oprah run the Chicago Marathon. The National Enquirer has figured out the same thing. And the National Enquirer, believe it or not, is a bigger, more well-staffed, more money organization than Runner's World. They had offices in Miami, they had offices in Los Angeles, and all over the place. And somebody did a database search and figured out that their staff had two actual runners on it, one in Miami and one in LA, and they were getting ready to fly them into Chicago to run the marathon, or to be with Oprah in the marathon, because they figured something horrible would probably happen, and they wanted to make sure to get great photos and great stories of Oprah collapsing, like Jimmy Carter or whatever would happen. So as it turns out, both of these major news organizations are completely fooled, and 2 days before the Marine Corps Marathon, which is in Washington, D.C., not Chicago, the Washington Post has a little article saying that Oprah Winfrey's going to run the marathon on Sunday. Well, the National Enquirer is like, oh crap, but they're pretty impressive. They rally the troops and fly the people in overnight from LA and Miami to be there for the marathon. I'm just hanging out because it's the Marine Corps Marathon. I've been invited to speak at a gathering like this, and so I'm just hanging out in Washington, D.C. with my wife, having a good time, and read the article in the newspaper. And it suddenly dawns on me that, well, Oprah is the most famous person who's ever run a marathon, probably to this day, on the globe. And I'm the editor of Runner's World, and I'm here in Washington, D.C., so how can I not run the marathon with Oprah? Well, there were two different approaches to covering Oprah. The National Enquirer staked out her hotel room. The minute she came out of the hotel room into a public space, they were beside her. They rode the elevators down. They took cars out to the start next to her. They had motorcycle policemen, photographers who were following her all the way. And they had these two guys who ran, one on each side of her during the marathon to be ready for whatever. That wasn't my way. I just hung out in the parking lot at the Pentagon, which was the 3-mile mark, and waited and waited and waited. And it was a drizzly, cold, miserable, not a bad running day, but not a nice spectator day. You know what it's like. Finally, Oprah shows up with these two National Enquirer guys. She's got on a hooded sweatshirt. She's trying to stay dry. She looks unhappy. She's kind of miserable. But the most difficult thing of all is, all 25,000 runners in the race by now know that Oprah's running it, and every one of them feels compelled to come up to her and clap her on the back and say, way to go, Oprah, I love your show, I watch you on TV every day, you're an inspiration, way to go, keep it going. And in the early miles, she's trying to be a nice girl, acknowledging people, thank you, yeah, appreciate, thank you. But you know what it's like after a few miles in the marathon, that stuff gets drained from you. You get to the parts of the course around the National Mall, and some of you have run that, and then the spectating crowd gets really big and loud, and they're all Oprah crazed by this time. That's all they want to do, and they're all yelling at Oprah, the same kind of things. And she's just absolutely, by mid-race, lost the ability to respond to anyone. She's just in that marathon world that we're all in to one degree, and she's just trudging along. And one of the things I noticed was that she was dreadfully afraid of stopping at the water stops. She would take water from people, and all of you know you have to stop to drink the damn water. If you don't stop, it's going up your nose, it's going every place, but she doesn't know that. So she's trying to drink while she's running, but she just absolutely won't stop. She just keeps going. Takes on quite a bit of water. Near the 20-mile mark, way out in what used to be Haynes Point, it's not run there anymore. She's taken on a lot of water. We go by 3 or 4 porta-johns, and Oprah goes by them like this, you know. But she's got the National Enquirer photographers on, but she's not about to give them the opportunity to film her going in, coming out, whatever else. So she just keeps on trudging. At 23 miles, and we were on a, whatever the pace was, about 9:30, 9:40, I guess. 23 miles, 24 miles, she looks down at her watch and she goes, oh my Lord. I looked too, and the watch said 17 minutes. And I was, you know, I knew that we hadn't run a 17-minute pace. We had done the same as all the other miles. And at that point, I actually went up to her and said, don't worry about that. The mileage marker is wrong. It's not like the Marines to get this stuff wrong, but you're fine. Yeah. She acknowledged me just a little bit. I forgot to add, in the middle of the race, the National Enquirer guys who knew that I was from Runner's World and had won Boston and all that, one of them went up to her and spoke to her and said, oh, that's Amby Burfoot. He's run the Boston Marathon, Runner's World, et cetera, et cetera. And she turned around and actually reached out and we shook hands. And the National Enquirer later sent me that photo. So I actually have that picture. Drizzly, wet, unhappy, unkempt, but we're shaking hands, which was very, very nice. And the amazing thing was she recovered from what she thought was that slow mile. She hit the incredibly nasty uphill at the very end up to the Iwo Jima Memorial, as you know, at Marine Corps. She starts picking up pace and passing people at the end. Finishes in, what was it, 4:29:20? A time that was considered slow in 1994, now highly respectable, right? And especially for, you know, someone who's been through her history, and yeah, she's as rich as she is, and yeah, she can hire chefs and personal trainers, but as we all know, you don't run the marathon without running the marathon yourself, without doing all the training yourself, and she had certainly done that, and I actually found it, and actually believe that to be one of the most courageous and impressive running performances I've ever seen, because I've never known anyone else who had to carry the sort of social and other burdens that she did in that race, and also had to have people slap her on the back all the way through, trying to respond to them. But the story of women's running, as told in the book through the profiles, really comes alive when you meet the people, and I've been lucky to do some book signings and appearances at Boston where we've had First Ladies, and it's so wonderful of these people to be here tonight. You can tell what